So I saw a really nice post on LinkedIn that you put on involving your work with Toronto Fire. I think it was the president of Toronto Fire and the administrative staff. And what I really liked about that post is you could tell it was a collaboration, even though it might be in a form like you and I here on Zoom or what have you. Just kind of speak towards, I guess, the value of collaboration and how complex that might be in an organization the size of Toronto Fire.
Yeah. You expect things to move like glaciers, right? In a
Yeah.
service that big. I mean, this kind of started, at least on my part. Um, so the peer support team wanted to start, a drop-in peer support group for members of the service, who are working or who are off or who are retired. And so the first group we planned was beginning of April, but of course COVID happened. So,
Yeah.
that got a little um, it got a little messed up. We did still do something virtual, but so we had already been in talks about that, and so I've been working with the Toronto Fire has a half-time clinician, Chris Rodriguez, and then we were working with the peer support team and Deputy Chief Tony Bovoda. He's a huge advocate for mental health, so he's the one I think has really been kind of pushing to allow this to happen. So we'd already been talking quite a bit about, what support to members might look like, whether they're doing well or whether they're not doing well. Should we involve family members? So we'd already been having that discussion leading up to this. And then of course, COVID happens and, a lot of people are stressed, right? And of course, family members, like some people have to isolate from their families. People are worried about getting their family members sick. Um, so also involved with the peer support group was the vice president of their association as well. So, kind of this collaboration came about because Deputy Chief Bovoda really wanted to offer some kind of support to the members of the service and their family members, right? Especially during this time of who knows what's
Mhm.
happening, when it's going to end. So because we'd already been collaborating on the peer support group, it came together fairly easily. And so Frank, who's the president, he came up with a really great idea of, well, it might be kind of like herding cats if we have it kind of open where everyone can kind of ask questions in a webinar format. So we made it a Q&A, right? So the service, they put out their communication to all their members saying, okay, this is going to happen. You and your family members are welcome to join. If you have any questions ahead of time, because we can't really let you ask them during it.
Mhm.
Then send them to Dr. Lee, right? Because I'm outside of the service, so they don't have to worry about anyone from the service knowing who wrote what. So
Right.
we put some questions together, and then Frank, they had some questions based on what the association has been hearing, and so we just made it kind of like this, right? It was just kind of this Q&A where Frank would ask questions, and I would answer, but it was also Frank was sharing a lot of his experiences, and he talked a little bit about stuff he's been through, and I think it's just really nice collaboration that came together.
Very permission giving for other members when you see a labor leader
Yeah,
disclosing some of their own personal story.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, so it was just really nice. The association was like, yeah, this is important. Let's do it. Management, this is important. Peer support team. And it was really nice to just have this come together to offer to the members.
Hmm. No, it
And
sounds
it's
really
nice because you hear about, sorry, but we heard about family members tuning in, members, and some crews who were on shift.
yeah,
So they were actually watching as a crew in their station, right?
nice.
Unless they got a call. Because it was really nice to hear that, because you're like, okay, you're not just watching this in secret,
Hmm.
right? But you're also doing this openly with your family or with your colleagues. And that was wonderful to hear.
Nice. And I hear very little of a differentiation between management and labor. And I really like this new chapter that we're starting to experience with places like Toronto Fire, where it doesn't sound to me like there's a strong us versus them. Because I think when you take that approach, it might be helpful with some types of challenges. But when it comes to mental health, it sounds cliche, but we're all in this together.
Yeah.
And when we look at the individuals wearing the white shirts, they've typically spent decades in on the front line within that organization prior to wearing those white shirts, and so there's a good chance they've got some heavy backpacks too. And and there's a lot of rocks that we collect in life just by living life, so to speak, right? So where do you kind of see the future of mental health services going now that it seems like you've opened some tremendous doors, for instance, in the Toronto area? Do you see this as continuing to grow where more members are going to start walking into clinician offices, or right now, maybe engaging in online therapy? Or are we still at a stage where we have to do more psychoeducation training and group stuff?
So I definitely see stigma decreasing and awareness increasing, but there's still a lot of stigma. There's still a lot of misperception out there. For especially police officers, for example, they worry they come to see a psychologist and, oh my gosh, I'm going to tell their chief that they have a drinking problem, right? And so, even just some education in terms of, you know, confidentiality and, what has to be kept confidential. Um, and I think a big movement, I like to kind of joke about, putting myself out of a job, because for me, the peer and the family support is crucial.
Hmm.
I don't want people to get to a point where they need me, or if they need me, it's not for a long period of time, right?
Right.
Because they've had family and colleagues much, much earlier on saying, oh, okay, what's going on? Okay, let's talk about it. Or, oh, wow, that was a really awful call. Let's talk about it. And so for me, I really see the movement in the social support and direction, whether we're talking about peer, whether we're talking about family, and hopefully more and more organizational,
Hmm.
so that it just becomes a regular thing. Just like an athlete, they twist their ankle, they get immediate rest and physio if they need it. I want that to be the same kind of idea. And then, and more clinicians, thanks to people like you, are getting more informed in terms of, public safety culture and, some of the unique factors there, and, how to help people work through their traumas, grow from
Hmm.
it. And then, if it's their choice, and then to return to work and start enjoying it again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's some great kind of perspectives on where this is all going, and I couldn't agree with you more. As someone on the front line and someone that's studying, kind of the emerging research at a CIPSERT, and obviously experiences such as your professional background, I kind of see the same thing happening. And just a little side note, I'm in a very unique situation in my fire service in that we're the only service in BC that essentially has unlimited counseling, because we have an internal program for union members where they can confidentially get a form that gives them $1,200 in funding, and they can see a clinician of their choice. And we, out of a membership of about 400, we hand out around 280 of those forms a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So my belief is, if you truly eliminate financial barriers and give people the choice of seeing clinicians either in their own backyard or wherever they choose to want to see them, regardless of whether they have a master's or a PhD level, that we'll inch up more towards that 44.5% that Nick Carlton and the crew at a University of Regina found kind of need help because they're in the red, so to speak, right? So
And,
yeah, it's
and a nice early trend I'm seeing in my practice is that I'm getting more clients who are in the early stages or brand spanking new in their career. They say, well, someone in my training suggested, to just kind of get a checkup. And so, I just kind of go through their history, where they're at. One of them, his wife was available. So then she kind of joined in by video, and I was able to do some kind of education in terms of what the work stress might look like. And we talked about his individual healthy and of course some unhealthy coping strategies, and what to kind of be on the lookout for if he's starting to have a hard time. So it's really nice to see that trend starting to emerge of people just, it's just like a checkup to them.
absolutely, and also that the foundation has been poured between you and that frontline worker for if they experience a large T trauma or unfortunately a major life setback in their personal life, at least they're not having to start from scratch and building their story with someone that hopefully they trust.
Yeah, exactly. I always hammer this home. The social support is huge. Almost nothing makes us feel so alien and alone and crazy than feeling like we're all alone in the world in this, right? And so just being able to connect to someone, even if they don't fully get it, someone who will just, they might say, you know, I don't know what you're going through, I'm just going to sit here with you, right? And so just being mindful, you know, if you're watching this, so you may be the one who needs to reach out to someone, and that's terrifying, and you may not feel like it because, you know, this is, and that's probably the time you need most to do it. So reaching out to someone you might be able to trust, and you know, if you're doing well, and that's not the case, then just keeping in mind, it's always okay if someone reaches out to say, I don't know,
Hmm.
or I don't get it, but I'm here for you, right? So we don't have to have all the answers. It's
Yeah.
just being present for each other.
Well, and one of the nice things about this COVID pandemic and the lack of ability to do daily activities is it's kind of forced people to reflect and maybe even look at other options to getting help. And I noticed on your website you're offering online counseling as well.
So I
So
think many clinicians have gone a crash course in video sessions. Yeah.
those telemedicine platforms are definitely busy adding clinicians these days. Can you speak a little bit about how a member in need might access your services through your website?
So it's just contacting me. So whether through email or my phone number is listed on there as well. You know, I like to have just a quick phone chat with people when they contact me, just to make sure, you know, that I can help with what they're looking for. You know, just get a better feel for what they're looking for, and then yeah. So I mean, I use a secured encrypted video platform that's compliant with their federal electronic data laws, as well as my provincial personal health information privacy laws. So, you know, you always have the right to ask any clinician that you're thinking of seeing about the security and privacy of their platform as well. But yeah,
Absolutely.
just reaching out and contact the clinician.